Hey everybody, Homicide Center here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing V-Base's 60's unbelievable run at the Indian Regional Qualifiers. Now this is an official Pokemon Go Championship Series sanctioned event, and that makes it the first sanctioned tournament of the full Might and Mastery meta. With new Pokemon like Cradily and Lapras having massive usage, V-Basist ends up qualifying for the finals using an anti-meta Pokemon to beat the top 3 Pokemon in usage, Melmetal. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And the first match we'll be taking a look at is V-Basist versus Play With Me 828. V-Basist's full team has Cradily, Guzzlord, Jellicent, Clodsire, Talonflame, and the aforementioned Melmetal, and for the opponent, Goodra, Shadow Drapion, Lapras, Dusclops, Emolga, and Wigglytuff. And the leads are set for game number 1. It's Guzzlord into Shadow Drapion. This is a terrific lead. But Lapras save switch, unfortunately, there's not really an amazing response on this team besides just staying in with the Guzzlord. Guzzlord can do great here as we do see a defense drop from the Crunch, but this Lapras is on Ice Beam. Guzzlord committing the shield. There's the Ice Beam from the Lapras. Guzzlord trying for the farm down here, but the Lapras survives on 1 HP. Lapras hangs on, makes a second Ice Beam, and suddenly this game has gone off the rails. That is really unfortunate there. Almost getting the farm down, but the Lapras just had slightly too much bulk. In comes Drapion. Drapion immediately met with a Dragon Claw, and Guzzlord is going to be unfortunately farmed down. Now this is going to be a very tough game to play out of. In comes the Clodsire. Clodsire at full health can very comfortably survive 2 Aqua Tails, but with 2 shields to hide behind, this Drapion is going to be an absolute nuisance. Opponent really nice energy management here with the Shadow Drapion spamming out these Aqua Tails, and now we're going to see the Earthquake launched at the Drapion. Earthquake at the Drapion is going to pick up the knockout. In the back is Goodra, and unfortunately this is looking like a game 1 loss for V-Basist, as Goodra is a dominant matchup against the Talonflame. There's nothing Talonflame can do. V-Basist knows it's over, so just not going to throw the charge move there, and instead use the time to think about any potential adjustments for game number 2. Now these are all best of 3 series, so V-Basist is going to have to win 2 of the next 3. Now that Lapras was a bit of a problem, and there's a Pokemon on this team that can do very well into it, and that is Melmetal. Melmetal is running Thundershock, Legacy Double Iron Bash, and Superpower. So for game number 2, there's the Melmetal, and it catches the lead. Melmetal into Lapras. Thundershock's hitting for super effective damage. Double Iron Bash will be able to spam out consistent neutral damage into this Lapras, and if V-Basist wants some hard-hitting super effective damage, Superpower is only a little bit of extra energy. Melmetal farming up quite a bit, and now full sending the Superpower. Decision time for the opponent. Superpower is going to connect, and down goes Lapras. So Lapras are moved from the field. There's still a decent amount of health available on this Melmetal. In comes Goodra, and Goodra will be hit with Superpower number 2. Superpower is going to land. Now we're going to see a switch out into the Clodsire, preserving a little bit of health on that Melmetal, but the main goal is just to not let Goodra have a huge energy head start. The Clodsire going to commit an early shield, return fire with a Sludge Bomb, and look to ramp up the pressure on the opponent. These Dragon Breaths are adding up quite a bit. Aqua Tail will not knock out the Clodsire here, but it will get the Clodsire low. So we are going to see a shield from V-Basist. V-Basist, unfortunately, going to be met with a third Aqua Tail. The energy advantage on that Goodra is proving to be a bit of a problem. And now we will see the Sludge Bomb launched at the Goodra. Goodra only 1 shield left. They're not going to use it here. Instead, it's the Drapion in the back, and this game should be a win. Building up to the Earthquake, baiting with the Sludge Bomb, grabbing the shield, farming up a ton of energy here. That's going to force the opponent's hand. They're forced to fire off an Aqua Tail to deny energy on the Clodsire, and now Guzzlord hits the field. And Guzzlord is just going to do amazingly against Shadow Drapion since it shuts down this Crunch plus Aqua Tail moveset. An initial Crunch debuff could have made things slightly more uncomfortable, but with no debuff, Guzzlord, in absolute control, can very comfortably survive a second Crunch, get the Dragon Tail farm down, and V-Basist, needing a win to stay alive in this series, turns to Melmetal, and Melmetal is able to even up the series. The opponent so far has brought the same line of 3 in the first 2 games, just in a different order. But looking across this team of 6, Melmetal has great play into most things that it can encounter, so I definitely would not be surprised if he turns to Melmetal once again for this decisive Game 3. Guzzlord lead into Goodra. This is an amazing lead for V Basist. Of course, Dragon Breath and Dragon Tail both hitting for super effective damage, but where Goodra falls short in this matchup is with the charge attacks. Aqua Tail and Thunder Punch both going to be resisted. The Guzzlord gets so much value in this matchup, and Guzzlord very happy just to concede switch advantage in exchange for shields. Out comes the Melmetal. Melmetal more than happy to tank a move from the Goodra. Goodra goes for the Aqua Tail. Melmetal gets the farm down, but what really wants to be brought into a Melmetal that's up a shield and up energy? Opponent with a switch in strategy here. They actually have the Dusclops. In comes Talonflame, and it's going to be Shadow Drapion in the back. So the opponent bringing that Dusclops, as it's probably the Pokemon on the team that has the best matchup into Melmetal. But now Talonflame up energy and up a shield is looking equally terrifying. Talonflame is going to be met with another Aqua Tail. We are going to see the final shield used. So the double shield on the Talonflame. Talonflame looking to pick up the knockout here. This is going to remove the Drapion from the field of play. Dusclops, very spammy, but does not hit very hard. No one move is going to knock out here. Shadow Punch not going to KO. V Basist guaranteeing some damage with the Fly. Fly is going to land. There's the switch to Melmetal. Melmetal not in a range where Shadow Punch will be able to knock out either. And Melmetal approaching the double Iron Bash. Melmetal gets there, and that should secure the win. Double Iron Bash is going to connect, and there's Double Iron Bash number 2. So after dropping 0-1 in this series, bringing out the Melmetal, clutching back-to-back wins, and now we move to the next round, which is against the Honshu 1405. They are running a team consisting of Wigglytuff, Shadow Feraligatr, Grumpig, Malamar, Ferrothorn, and Forretress. So a pretty interesting team, some anti-meta picks from the opponent here as well. But looking across this team, if it can avoid the Wigglytuff, Guzzlord looks ridiculous here, and there it is on the lead, leading into Malamar. Superpower does hit for super effective damage, but since the Psywaves are so heavily resisted, honestly, Superpower not the worst in the world. We do see a bait from the opponent, a pretty nice bait, and now Guzzlord looking to lock in some damage, going for the harder hitting Crunch. Crunch is going to be shielded. Opponent gets debuffed, and they do throw on alignment, so they do give an entire free Dragon Tail onto their -1 defense. Opponent staying in this matchup. They were trying to make one final superpower, but a Dragon Claw will ensure that does not happen. Looking to safe switch into the Clodsire. Clodsire does have a lot of neutral play here. Out comes Fortress. There's the safe switch to the Clodsire. Clodsire, this is only a Rock Tomb. They have to do 5-volt switches if they want to get to an Earthquake. So that only being a Rock Tomb is very okay. I mean, the Clodsire is now going to be debuffed unless it switches out, but that's pretty fine. Out comes Feraligatr. Feraligatr now going to be hit with a -1 Earthquake. And even though this is debuffed, it's a Shadow Feraligatr. It does not have a ton of bulk. So Feraligatr still takes pretty significant damage. Switch timer's up. In comes the Guzzlord. Guzzlord gets the farm down, exiting with energy. The one worry here is actually going to be the energy on the Fortress. Fortress going to shield up, going to look for the Volt Switch farm down, and they get it. Now they have so much energy. In comes the Talonflame. Incinerate registers, but I believe they're at back-to-back Rock Tombs. And that means the Talonflame is going to get one-shot by double super effective damage. Talonflame unable to land that second Incinerate. In comes the Clodsire, making it to the Sludge Bomb, but this is double resisted damage. It's a Steel type. It doesn't KO. It's going to come down to the wire. Is it a tie? Oh, it's not! Clodsire 1 HP, hanging on. My goodness, you cannot ask for much closer of a battle than that. Now for game number 2, honestly, do you even switch up the strategy? Melmetal stayed on the bench. Pokemon like Malamar are pretty good at scaring it off, but that Guzzlord proved to be incredibly powerful. And for the opponent, honestly, as long as the Guzzlord doesn't see Wigglytuff, Guzzlord is going to do great. Guzzlord again on the lead, and it again finds a target, this time into Feraligatr. Guzzlord, strategic throw on alignment here, because if you try and throw on good timing, the opponent makes you make the first shield-in decision of the match. Here, the opponent is going to throw on suboptimal timing themselves, but honestly, that's one situation where I don't mind throwing on alignment from V-Bassist. V-Bassist does not fall for the CMP tie from the opponent, instead taking the free Dragon Tail, and will now get to dictate switch advantage. If Wigglytuff gets brought in, we'll see a pivot out, but they did not bring it. The threat of the Clodsire and the Talonflame in the back, too much for the Wigglytuff. Dragon Claw going to be shielded, trying to make it to the crunch, and look at Guzzlord go. Guzzlord getting so much value in this matchup. Opponent throwing instantly. They just want the Guzzlord gone. Superpower that does not even KO. In comes Talonflame. It's the Fortress in the back. Oh no, and this is going to be a very quick battle. Talonflame going for the fly. That's going to pick up the knockout. In comes the Malamar. Malamar firing off energy here, going for this foul play. Foul play is going to connect, but Talonflame just too strong in the back here. Once Feraligatr was out of the way, Talonflame fly. Looks like there's a bit of pause here. Opponent may have closed the app, but Talonflame taking the 2-0 win, and we move to the next round of the tournament. The next round is against Rashab, who's running a team with a lot of old meta picks on it. Azumarill, Shadow Drapion, the new meta, Credilli, and then Talonflame, Malamar, and Charjabug. This matchup, there are some Pokemon that can dissuade the use of Melmetal, as Melmetal's charge attacks are going to be walled by both the Charjabug and the Talonflame. It's Guzzlord, as always, on the lead, this time leading into a Malamar, which, as we've seen, is a pretty good spot to be as the Guzzlord. Even if they land the Superpower, it does not knock out. So Superpower is going to connect, safe switch to Azumarill, and that's going to be swiftly answered with Credilli. Credilli, unfortunately, will actually get outpaced here due to the one-turn swap. Ice Beam is going to connect, and that will hit for massive super effective damage. But Credilli has a pacing advantage, able to make it to the back-to-back Grass Knots, and back-to-back Grass Knots with a little bit of damage that Bullet Seed is able to apply will be enough to knock out the Azumarill and maintain switch advantage. In comes Malamar. Malamar going to be forced to throw a foul play here to pick up the knockout. They're not going to want to debuff themselves, so foul play will be the way to go. In comes the Guzzlord. In the back is going to be Credilli. Now this is a pretty good spot to be in as V-Bassist. V-Bassist now gets to send out Clodsire. Credilli's in a very awkward position here because Credilli, for survivability reasons, needs to go for a Rock Tomb, but a Rock Tomb, even though it does get a debuff, does basically no damage to Clodsire. So now, unfortunately, the Clodsire hasn't used a shield, and it's still extremely healthy. And even a -1 Sludge Bombs will add up. Credilli now going to go for some damage, connecting with a Grass Knot, but that's a very comfortable survive for the Clodsire, whereas a -1 Sludge Bomb is enough to force a shield. Out comes the Malamar, and even though this Guzzlord is into the red health, Guzzlord is heavily resisting these Psy Waves. So as long as the Guzzlord had shields to hide behind, I mean, there's just no way the Malamar can make any progress here. Malamar is going to be shielding up the Dragon Claw, but these Psy Waves, I mean, you can't even really visually see any damage being done here to the Guzzlord. Guzzlord making it to the Dragon Claw, that's going to be enough to pick up the knockout. And from here, this is just a game 1 win. There's the switch out into the Clodsire, and Grass Knot will not be enough to knock out here. It will get the Clodsire quite low, but Clodsire hangs on, making it to the Sludge Bomb, knocking out the Credilli, and V-Bassist is able to take game number 1. So the Guzzlord, again, proving to be extremely valuable. The Melmetal, a bit of a tougher bring in this particular matchup, again, due to the Talonflame wall and the energy, and Charjabug wall and the energy. So instead, opting for a more classic line, where you have Guzzlord, you have Credilli, which is extremely flexible as a safe swap in this meta, and then Clodsire to try and catch any lurking Charjabug. Guzzlord and a Talonflame, what a lead. Talonflame can potentially threaten the first shield of the match with a Brave Bird, though. They don't throw right away, instead they're looking to go for good timing. Crunch is going to inflict some serious damage here. Opponent is going to commit the shield, and they farm to 100. They now have a Fly plus a Brave Bird. We're going to see an O shield. It's the Brave Bird, and down goes Guzzlord. A true 50-50. Clodsire hits the field, and now we are going to see a pivot out. Rashab able to preserve a fly on the Talonflame, sending in the Credilli, and Credilli immediately applies a debuff. And that's going to make life very uncomfortable as the Clodsire Sludge Bomb now not going to do as much damage as it typically would. Saving some energy, there's a switch into the mirror as the opponent is going to go for the harder hitting Grass Knot. The question will be who actually does win the CMP tie here. We're not going to find out just yet. No one move would KO here, so V-Bassist is going to prioritize having some residual energy. V-Bassist now going for the Grass Knot. Not debuffed yet, so this will be at full power. Grass Knot does not pick up the KO, and that's going to force him to fire off one final charge attack. Looking to pivot out. In the back is Malamar, and even with 2 shields to hide behind, he's just farming over 100 because he knows that it's over. There is no way for Clodsire to win at this point, so from here, he is just going to keep tapping his fast moves, let the Malamar farm him all the way down, and we're going to be moving to a game number 3. Up next, we're going to have a decisive game number 3. V-Bassist is so far undefeated in the Swiss. There were 3 rounds prior to the rounds that I'm showing in this video. So, up to this point, V-Bassist, if I'm not mistaken, is 5-0 in the tournament, trying to become 6-0. But first, to do that, they're going to need to win this decisive game number 3. And in game number 3, Guzzlord returns into the Malamar, and Melmetal, despite the fact that it's a bit risky, Melmetal hits the field. V-Bassist saying, you know what? If I lose, I want to lose with Melmetal. Superpower is going to connect. There's the safe switch to the Talonflame. Incinerate's going to be resisted here, but after taking a lot of damage, this is not as comfortable for the Guzzlord. Guzzlord making it to another Dragon Claw, continually applying pressure to the Talonflame. Talonflame can commit the shield. They could farm down, so this is going to force out the Clodsire. Clodsire can survive any one move. Clodsire, no shields. There's the Brave Bird. Rashab so consistent with landing the Brave Birds, and now we will see the shield from the Clodsire. Switch clock is up, Talonflame switches out, and we do see Malamar re-enter the field. Malamar immediately met with a Sludge Bomb. That's going to be no shielded. Clodsire does not get there. Perfect counting by the opponent, and Clodsire choosing to let this go, saving the final shield. There's still a Guzzlord. It's incredibly low. Guzzlord unable to be Psywave down. That's going to force energy from the Malamar. Foul Play is going to connect, and now it's Melmetal versus the world. Melmetal off to a good start as it gets the farm down. Melmetal really hoping it's going to be Credilli or Drapion, and that's the best case scenario. It's Credilli in the back. Credilli will take super effective damage from Double Iron Bash. Double Iron Bash, number 1, is going to connect, and that does some very solid damage. V-Bassist always trying to ensure that there is quite a lot of residual energy on this Melmetal. Melmetal firing off another Double Iron Bash. That's going to connect. Credilli continuing to farm, but Credilli is just so slow compared to the Melmetal. Melmetal already at another Double Iron Bash. That's going to force the shield. They're firing off energy, and Melmetal is going to expend the final shield. Trying to keep the Melmetal as healthy as possible. There's the switch into the Talonflame. Talonflame going to be met with the harder hitting Superpower. Superpower is going to pick up the KO. In comes Credilli and Melmetal in the decisive game 3. Clutch once again. Even at -2, Double Iron Bash will easily KO Credilli. And V-Bassist moves to 6-0 in the Swiss rounds. Swiss round 7 is going to be against Spooky Mafia 91, running a team with Corviknight, Shadow Drapion, Shadow Annihilate, one of my favorite Pokemon, Blastoise, Credilli, and Clodsire. And one thing to note, this Clodsire from the opponent is on Sludge Bomb and Earthquake. For game number 1, it's Talonflame into Shadow Drapion. Now this is only a win for Drapion in the 2 shield, as in the 0s and the 1s, there's not enough Poison Sting damage registering for an Aqua Tail to actually knock out. We are going to see an early shield and an under tap here because as the Talonflame, if you try and throw in good timing, then Drapion can make another move. There's a safe switch to Guzzlord looking to bait out a potential Annihilate, but no Annihilate to be seen as Clodsire hits the field. Crunch into the Clodsire is going to inflict some solid damage, and the opponent is going to need 2 moves if they want to pick up the KO. So they are going to start off with a Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb is going to land, and Guzzlord, it's very close as to whether another Sludge Bomb would knock out here. The opponent is going to full send an Earthquake, as that will guarantee a KO. Honestly, baiting out a Clodsire, considering there's a Melmetal in the back, is quite nice as well, but that's a nice play by the opponent. They're able to save that Clodsire for later, sending back in the Drapion, and Drapion is able to pressure that final shield. Fly is going to be shielded. There's the switch to Melmetal, and Melmetal now looks to farm up some energy, but with no shields to hide behind, Crunch is guaranteed to land. Crunch also gets a defense drop as well, and this Melmetal, unwilling to take the Aqua Tail, is going to pick up the KO with Double Iron Bash. In the back is Credilli, and that's the perfect Pokemon to see here. Already Melmetal at the back-to-back double Iron Bashes, landing the first, now going for the harder hitting superpower. Opponent realistically gonna need 2 moves on the Credilli, 1 for the Melmetal and 1 for the Talonflame, and they get farmed down. They don't survive. There's the switch to the Talonflame as the opponent is gonna fire off the Sludge Bomb, and that's why they needed 2 moves, because Sludge Bomb just does not KO Talonflame. Talonflame withstanding the damage, returning fire with the fly, and able to secure the Game 1 victory. V-Basis has shown in previous matchups when a line works, he could potentially decide to run it back. And even though the Annihilate wasn't the thing that was baited out by the Guzzlord, baiting out the Clodsire works very well. The opponent, credit to them, realized it was a bait out and saved the Clodsire, but even so, it wasn't quite enough to secure the victory. So game number 2, it's Talonflame into the Shadow Annihilate. There's a safe switch to Shadow Drapion, and that's going to be met with Guzzlord. And it does look like he did run back the exact same line as before. No crunch debuff as well. So things looking great for the Guzzlord. Guzzlord firing off the Dragon Claw. That's big damage onto the Drapion. One uncomfortable aspect of this matchup, however, is the fact that the Guzzlord is not going to make a move versus the Annihilate. Annihilate is going to take both Dragon Tails, but unfortunately does not have to give up a shield. And now Talonflame has to kind of shield everything here because this is a Shadow Annihilate. Rage Fist does way too much damage. Talonflame, 1 Incinerate and the Fly, looking to put pressure and get that shield back. The opponent is going to commit the shield. They're firing off another Rage Fist, and the final shield goes up for the Talonflame. Talonflame now going to be met with a Clodsire, and that's not what you're hoping to see at all. Farming up 2 Incinerates, going for the Fly, and getting a shield from the opponent. Waits the turn, trying to catch, but unfortunately the catch does not come through, and that's a great adjustment by the opponent, realizing this was a bait out line to try and set up the Melmetal, so bringing both Melmetal counters. And unfortunately, Melmetal is put in a lot of work in a lot of these games, but it is really struggling here. Sludge Bomb is going to pick up the KO. Talonflame needs to try and get to enough energy to Brave Bird the Clodsire and make a move versus that Shadow Annihilate, and it's just not enough. So unfortunately, we're going to a decisive game 3. The Melmetal has put in tremendous work in the games that it's been brought, but unfortunately it felt like a liability there versus the Clodsire. So Melmetal may have to be brought to the bench for this game number 3 if the opponent is really trying to hone in on stopping it. There's a Guzzlord lead, and there is Credilli. So the opponent, honestly, not a bad spot for either trainer here. Credilli is going to lose the CMP tie to Guzzlord, but this is a war of attrition, and Credilli with these guaranteed Rock Tomb debuffs is so incredibly oppressive. Rock Tomb, even with the Bullet Seeds, does not 2-shot, but it just puts the Guzzlord incredibly low. Guzzlord, I honestly like the play not to throw here, because the move will not KO anyway, so you may as well just try and get as much energy as you can. And now we are going to see the Crunch launched at Credilli. Crunch does get a defense drop. There's a switch to Drapion, answered with Clodsire, and the adjustment is a Jellicent as the 3rd Pokemon. So Clodsire going to be hit with Aqua Tail. Down energy, this matchup is always extremely uncomfortable. V-Basis loses the CMP tie and is locked into a Sludge Bomb bait. This could be a turning point in the game. Does the opponent call the Sludge Bomb? No, they do not. They're looking to invest in the Drapion. Drapion, nice energy management there by the opponent. They overfarm to try and CMP tie the Clodsire. Clodsire not going to fall for it. Clodsire waits. The opponent unable to get the catch. Credilli gets sniped down by the Guzzlord. Very nicely done. But the Guzzlord is very, very low. Out comes a Clodsire. Can't quite get to the Crunch. But this is where the adjustment of benching the Melmetal is going to pay dividends, because Jellicent hits the field, and Jellicent is going to do great. I believe this is the first time we've actually seen Jellicent brought. Every other Mon had been brought so far, but the Jellicent making an appearance in round 7. There's the Drapion switch in, but this Hex pacing so fast now. Another Surf is ready. There's the combo play into the Clodsire, and Sludge Bomb would pick up the knockout. So the opponent is forced to shield, and there's just too much energy on the Clodsire, able to knock out the Drapion, and now it's a battle of Clodsire. The opponent realizes they have no win con, and they will resign the match. So V-Basis now 7-0 in the Swiss rounds, moving into the final round, round 8 against Fake XX Soul. Azumarill, Shadow Drapion, Shadow Marowak, Shadow Sableye, Credilli, and Talonflame. The Shadow Marowak makes it a bit tough to bring the Melmetal, but the Melmetal does have play in other places. We're going to see Talonflame into the Shadow Marowak. This matchup is not as comfortable for the Talonflame as one might wish. Here, the opponent safe switches into a Drapion, and they actually overfarm there. They could have thrown the Aqua Tail instantly and immediately put pressure on the Talonflame, but they overfarm, and that actually allows V-Basis to escape and send in the Guzzlord. Guzzlord going to be hit with Crunch after Crunch, and Guzzlord is very comfortable with that. Going to fire off this Dragon Claw into the Drapion, picks up the knockout, and now they're going to send out Credilli. But Credilli is going to have a miserable time trying to Bullet Seed down. They're not going to be able to do so. They're going to be forced to throw a move. Crunch lands, and they're just losing so much ground here. In comes the Marowak, but Marowak is so far behind the Talonflame. Talonflame Fly is going to connect. Opponent calling the bait, but it's just not going to be enough. This game is over. Talonflame committing the shield. Rock Slide from the Marowak. Talonflame pretty close to 2 more flies. In comes Credilli, and V-Basis very comfortable conceding the free Bullet Seed in exchange for getting that ever important shield back. Because with the shield back, I mean, this is a very easy game. Credilli for V-Basis just has way more health than the opposing Credilli, and V-Basis can even shield, fly to burn the switch timer, and now it's going to be Credilli versus Credilli, and there's just no hope for the opponent. Grass Knot is reached, and that's going to be a decisive Game 1 win for V-Basis. And V-Basis looking to try and do a perfect 8-0 sweep in the Swiss, and choosing not to bring the Melmetal there, but considering the Marowak was brought, it looks like that probably worked out for the better. And the opponent, Fake XX Soul, is 6-1 in the Swiss, so they're needing to get to 7 wins to guarantee that they move to the final stage of the qualifiers. The leads are set. Credilli against Shadow Drapion. We do see the Melmetal in the back and the Guzzlord. Insta throw here from the Drapion, wanting to lock in some damage before a debuff gets applied. Speaking of debuffs, no debuff from Crunch, and Credilli returns fire with the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is going to inflict some very solid damage. Opponent, nice overfarm, and they're going to look to fire off another Crunch. Will this be enough to pick up the knockout here? Credilli hangs on. Credilli went for a Grass Knot, anticipating a catch from the opponent. No catch to be seen, but able to grab a shield. And now Guzzlord enters the field. Guzzlord very comfortable tanking the resisted and debuff damage here and getting a big farm down. If Azumarill's in the back, this could be difficult, and it's the Azumarill. In comes Melmetal. Melmetal answered with Sableye, and this is going to be a difficult game, but Melmetal's going to need to put the team on its back here. This is the Shadow Sableye, which means Double Iron Bash does add up quite a bit, firing off another Double Iron Bash. Now, is the opponent, we actually do see the final shield used here, but is the opponent going to be able to force the final shield? I believe Melmetal doesn't quite have the energy lead that it needs, and Melmetal is going to be forced to burn the final shield. And this now means that the Azumarill does actually look quite scary. The Guzzlord doesn't have a good way of damaging it. There's the switch into the Azumarill, and the Double Iron Bash will be reached, but this is only neutral damage, and this is a full health Azumarill. Azumarill just way too much for Guzzlord to overcome here. Play Rough connects, down goes the Melmetal, and it looks like this is going to go down to a decisive game number 3 as Melmetal tried what it could, but unfortunately the Azumarill just too much here, and Azumarill is going to be able to pick up the knockout with a double super effective Play Rough. So now, hours of battling, many rounds of Swiss, an entire day of competing comes down to this. A decisive game number 3. In game 2, Melmetal not quite able to clutch, so for game number 3, it's going to be Talonflame on the lead, Guzzlord and Credilli, but it's an Azumarill lead from the opponent. And this is very unfortunate. Talonflame caught ABA weak. Talonflame farming up a ton of energy. Ice Beam will not be enough to knock out here. That's going to connect. Talonflame barely hanging on and going for the Brave Bird. Brave Bird right off the bat here. We see the no shield from the opponent, but the bubble KOs, and Talonflame unable to make it to that second move. Ice Beam is going to connect onto the Credilli. Out comes a Drapion, and Drapion will immediately be debuffed by the Credilli, and this is going to be a very tough game. As if that fly had been thrown first, then the Brave Bird would have also been available because the bubble wouldn't have registered on -3 defense. But after an entire full day of competing, so many rounds of Swiss, unfortunately, a rare misplay from our battler now puts them on the back foot in this final battle. One final charge attack reached by the Drapion. There's the switch into the Azumarill, and Azumarill will instantly be met with the Crunch. Crunch into the Azumarill is going to be resisted. Azumarill able to hang on. Guzzlord looking for the farm down and cannot get there. Forced to fire off this Dragon Claw to pick up the KO. And the opponent does actually decide to commit the final shield onto the Azumarill, letting the Guzzlord go, and it's all up to Credilli. Credilli is going to try and sweep. In the back, it's Sableye, and Sableye will instantly be met with a Grass Knot. Grass Knot is going to do more damage than a potential Rock Tomb. The opponent able to fire off their charge attack, and unfortunately, this is looking like it is going to be game over as Drapion hits the field. In comes the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb going for an undercharge here to try and clutch the game, but it's just not enough. And unfortunately, the difference in this game was that missed fly on that Talonflame. All in all, still an unbelievable run by the bassist. Able to go 7-1 in the rounds of Swiss, and out of hundreds of competitors, finishing in 4th place with the top 16 qualifying for the finals. So big congratulations to the bassist, and qualifying with a very unusual anti-meta Pokemon, Melmetal, showing that thinking outside the box can honestly work out extremely well. Because man, what a great meta read for this tournament, and it pays dividends, and I'm very hopeful that V-Bassist is going to be able to do well in the finals and punch his ticket to the World Championships in Anaheim, California. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.